Hey guys, welcome back to Joko Yo. And we are going to go full speed ahead because, y'all, this episode has got so much in it. And it's so good. I think this is one of my favorite ones so far. No time like the present. Let's just get going. Growing up in this region of North Carolina in the 70s and 80s, one of the highlights was the ACC basketball tournament, which always happened in March. Now, I can't speak for everyone, but I can relay the experience of a lot of kids of the area and the place. We all had our favorite teams, which always seemed to be either NC State or Carolina. Nobody really cared for Duke. I mean, to identify as a Duke fan would make you an immediate outcast, and you would be looked at like with suspicion for the rest of your school career as if you were a Soviet spy. Ain't nobody a fan of Duke. Now, every now and again, you would come across a Wake Forest fan, and they were generally looked at with pity because, I mean, they aren't going to win anything. Every other team was an outsider who happened to be in the ACC tournament. You know, supporting actors in this play, so to speak. Even the teachers got caught up in it because for a week throughout my school experience, TVs were wheeled into the classrooms and we watched those tournaments. It was a whole lot like if we went to school at Christmas, except with competition and cheering and trash talking. So it was sort of like Thanksgiving dinners with some American families at this point. Carolina Duke wasn't a rivalry yet. Okay, so let me back off that word yet because it gives the idea that it had not existed before the 1980s, and that would be inaccurate. The Duke-Carolina rivalry actually is really old and predates the University of North Carolina-NC State rivalry of my childhood by nearly 100 years. And involves, you guessed it, Johnston County. It's called Joko Yo. I can even throw in some modern controversy in the mix too, just for giggles. Now, according to research done by UNC, there was a massive scandal in the 1790s, just 1790s. All the way back then, the Duke family was not yet the prominent family that we know today. 100 years before Washington Duke, J.B. Duke, and all those guys, the Duke family, like many others, were farmers. But they're not as rich as some, but they're not as poor as others. 1790s, keep that in mind. Now, one of the men of this family, Taylor Duke, was recently married in the 1790s, but he soon proved not to be a very faithful husband, as evidenced by the pregnancy of one Cheney Mangum, who identified Mr. Duke as the father. Now, he denied it, but according to many, there was no point denying it. The affair wasn't that well kept a secret. But his denial led to a lawsuit by Cheney's father for child support. The affair itself was scandalous, no doubt about that. But the fact that there was a lawsuit for child support was even more so, because such matters were to be handled with honor, not the courts. In fact, duels were favored in such cases much more than the court system. To the Mangums, Taylor Duke's refusal of the obvious was dishonorable. To Mr. Duke, taking him to court and making a private matter a very public one was equally dishonorable. It was very public because the Mangum family was a major donor to the new University of North Carolina, as well as prominent actors in the formation and support of the Whig political party in North Carolina. The Duke-UNC rivalry began way before basketball was even invented. By the late 1800s, the animosity had grown to include the universities that they helped to build. So much so, in fact, that when Orange County was going to be split in two, the Mangums pushed to have the new county named after them. And upon hearing of this, the Duke family threatened to move their entire American tobacco operation elsewhere, so it was named Durham County instead. In 1897, three of the heads of the largest religious colleges in North Carolina, Wake Forest, which was Baptist, Elon of the Church of Christ, and Duke University, which was Methodist, were pushing the state to limit the non-religious taxpayer-funded UNC to just graduate students. Now, these religious leaders claimed that the young men at UNC were not being given the moral education that they needed to become men, but that church colleges could actually provide that. The most outspoken of these critics of UNC was Bishop John Carlisle Killigo of Duke, who would go so far as to suggest that UNC should probably just be a research institution. They had no business educating young men. Of course, that didn't happen, but the rivalry, of course, did get hotter. Nobody had really gotten hurt yet. Okay, now, sidebar, we're going to come back to it. Nathaniel Green Rand was from an old American family of architects and builders from colonial-era Williamsburg. Nathaniel himself inherited some land in Wake County from his brother and turned it into a pretty profitable farm where he raised 17 children. Dang, that's a lot of kids. Now, one of those children, number 6, attended UNC. He was named Oscar Ripley Rand. He became an attorney, but he made most of his money from the same farm, which was located in the Panther Branch community, just across the Wake side of the Johnston and Wake County border. It's on the other side of Johnston's Cleveland and Pleasant Grove townships. During the American Civil War, Oscar became a recruiter for the Confederacy, but was involved soon, actually fighting at New Bern, becoming a POW, released in a prisoner exchange, and then Oscar got caught up in Pickett's charge at the Battle of Gettysburg. His regiment was the 26th North Carolina, which sustained the largest numerical losses of any one unit, north or south, throughout the entire war. His regiment, 588 of 800 men were lost in that one charge on that one day, and 13 of 14 commanding officers also died. By war's end, only 81 of that 800 were alive. He was one of those. He survived. Now, when he came back home, he found his home, like many others, burned, and all the livestock either dead or missing. Oscar tried to salvage it, but he couldn't. He couldn't make something work from the scraps that he was left. So he bought 3,000 acres on the Neuse River near Smithfield in Johnston County for $1 an acre to try to do something new. It took years to recover the losses, and Oscar never got over it. Now, of his children, the girls married and mostly moved away. Of the boys, Nathaniel married, but he had no kids. Nathaniel actually stayed in Smithfield and started work on what would later be Holt's Dam, which in turn gave birth to Holt's Lake. That's a cool connection. Another son, John, was sawing wood at Holt's Lake Mill in 1897 when a board being trimmed from a log fell on the spinning large circular blade, which propelled the board into his abdomen, killing him at the age of 32. Got to be the first death at Holt's Lake that I've ever heard of. Another son, Walter, he stayed at Wake, buying back some of the old family land near modern-day Garner. The Rand family years ago had operated a small mill, which got larger, that had since fallen into disrepair over the years. Walter's own son Parker took it upon himself to restore it, and the pond that gave it its power. But the nearby city of Raleigh needed a new water supply in the late 1800s, so Parker and the city negotiated a purchase of the pond. Raleigh is going to end up digging out that pond to make it much larger, turn it into a reservoir that we now know as Lake Benson. Another son was named Isaac William Rand. Now, at the age of 19 in 1912, Isaac William Rand is going to enroll at UNC, full of promise. He was the third of the sons to attend UNC. His father had attended UNC, and then there's another one that attended UNC. His name was going to be Oscar Ripley Rand Jr. Now, Oscar Ripley Rand Jr. was the other Rhodes Scholar to come out of Johnston County, had attended the Turlington Institute. Oscar Ripley Rand also is going to later receive patents with a guy named F.K. Broadhurst from Smithfield, who is recorded as being the first man at Johnston that owned a car. Isaac William Rand is going to go to Carolina. Now, Billy, as Isaac was known, had a bright future that Monday in Chapel Hill. Another former Turlington graduate becoming a star. That Monday night before classes started, a group of freshmen were called in to sing and dance at the demands of some sophomores. A little bit of an initiation ritual. And on the night of the third day of classes, just after midnight, a group of those sophomores apparently decided that some freshmen needed some extra initiation and went into the dormitory where Billy Rand and his roommate, Robert Wellens, also of Smithfield, were in their night clothes sleeping. The two young men were roused from their beds and forced to walk to the athletic field just south of Bynum Gymnasium, which is now called Bynum Hall, and there sat a barrel full of white lime, which was used to mark the field. Wellens was told to stand on the barrel, which was surrounded by broken glass, and recite a speech, which Wellens said he didn't know that speech. The students were irritated with him and then told him to sing a specific song. He did know that, so Robert Wellens stood on the barrel in his nightshirt at midnight and sang How Green I Am. I don't know the song myself. Now, once done, Billy Rand was placed on the barrel and was told to sing a specific song and dance. Rand said he didn't know the song that they're asking him to sing, but he did decide to dance for them. One of the students was irritated at what he saw as Billy's refusal to sing, and he kicked that barrel that Rand was dancing on. That knocked off Rand, who fell on the glass, just so, exposing his neck to some broken glass, which severed his carotid artery, and Billy Rand bled to death in 10 minutes. 4 students were arrested and held on $5,000 bond each. The next day saw a firestorm erupt. The family was notified, of course. The bells rang in mourning. The flag at the university was put at half-staff. The governor of North Carolina called for an immediate investigation. The former head of Duke University, Bishop Kilgo, wrote an editorial essentially saying, "See, I told you so," which deepened the dislike between the universities. The university was reeling, and they pretty much expected parents to begin pulling their children out. One famous millionaire alumnus known for his charitable contributions, a man named Julian Shakespeare Carr, stepped in. He promised to pay the bonds of the 4 students arrested. Now, not that he condoned the actions, he said, but to help the university and their families while the investigation and trial, which both promised to be expensive while they went on. Carr himself had been enrolled at UNC when the Civil War broke out, and he quit his studies to fight with the Confederacy. Then he got involved with, and essentially along with the Duke family, invented the tobacco industry, then the textile industry, then got involved in the electric industry. He became a millionaire by 1900, and he had even been nominated for the vice presidency of the United States. He gave money to the Methodist Church. He gave money to Duke University, which was then called Trinity. He gave money to Elizabeth Cady Stanton to help give women the right to vote. He gave money to a group in China trying to overthrow the emperor and start China's first republic. Julian Carr was quite the philanthropist. He was also a close friend of Clayton's Ashley Horn and a longtime advocate for the fair treatment of his fellow Confederate veterans. Upon seeing the plight of UNC, he gave a substantial monetary gift to the university in 1912. And the university, to honor Mr. Carr and Confederate veterans like him, built a new statue on its campus. Oscar Ripley Rand still believed in the university enough that he enrolled another son the following year, in 1913, Oliver Gray Rand. Now, the Rand family still dots the political landscape of Wake County and North Carolina. Their names also adorn two Garner area roads. Rand Road and New Rand Road are named after them. And the statue that was erected in Mr. Carr's honor, colloquially named or called Silent Sam, came down this year after a firestorm of controversy. And the UNC-Duke rivalry is still very much alive. All going back, well, not going completely back, to the hazing death of one of Johnston's own. And that, ladies and gentlemen, will pretty much do it. Appreciate you listening. It was fantastic. Got much more coming. And as always, y'all be good.